Vanilla. Orange. Vanilla.
Orange. Vanilla. Coke.
Do you know what smoking and cigarettes do to the inside of your body?
It hurts your body. Smoke and cigarettes can hurt your lungs.
It hurts your throat.
It hurts lots of other parts too.
It makes you more likely to get heart disease and lung disease.
It increases your risk for a heart attack or stroke.
And on the outside, it really just stinks.
Your clothes smell, your breath is gross, and your teeth get yellow.
Hello, do you hear what we're saying?
Do you hear what we're saying?
Do you hear what we're saying?
Smoking isn't cool. It's not cool at all.
And it can kill you. Hey, you won't start smoking for yourself. Just do it for me.
And me.
And me.
And me.
And me.
And us.
So we have our nice guac smasher here.
That's the guac smasher?
The guac smasher. I always joked is, man, working at Chipotle definitely gave me some muscles. I mean, I worked at a sandwich shop before and the guacamole came in a bag in a freezer and who knows what was in it.
You know what's in all of this food.
Yes. I'm gonna add onions and cilantro, jalapenos, get all those ingredients in there.
It is fresh.
Fresh every day.
You've had quite the career.
Yeah, I've had some pretty prestigious jobs over the years. News producer, executive transport manager, and a beverage distribution supervisor. Now I'm a director at a security software firm.
Wow, you've been at it a long time.
The thing is, I like working. What if my retirement plan is I don't want to retire?
Then let's not create a retirement plan. Let's create a plan for what's next.
I like that.
Get a plan that's right for you. TD Ameritrade.
Corner pocket.
Greetings and salutations.
Whoa! It's the new guy!
You, sir, are correct. I am Epic Crunch Nacho, known worldwide for my powerful crunch. Crunch!
What the what? He just crunched the 8-ball!
Welcome to the team, Epic Crunch.
Thank you very much.
Ow! You crunched my hand!
Oh no! I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. It was a total accident. I'm sorry, it'll never happen again.
Psych!
Haha, you got me. New Goldfish Epic Crunch! Crunch that packs a punch!
Flavors of orange and vanilla and Coke living together harmoniously, just like the fine people of this town.
Orange! Vanilla. Orange. Vanilla.
Orange. Vanilla. Coke.
Do you know what smoking and cigarettes do to the inside of your body?
It hurts your body. Smoke and cigarettes can hurt your lungs.
It hurts your throat.
It hurts lots of other parts too.
It makes you more likely to get heart disease and lung disease.
It increases your risk for a heart attack or stroke.
And on the outside, it really just stinks.
Your clothes smell, your breath is gross, and your teeth get yellow.
Hello, do you hear what we're saying?
Do you hear what we're saying?
Do you hear what we're saying?
Smoking isn't cool. It's not cool at all.
And it can kill you. Hey, you won't start smoking for yourself. Just do it for me.
And me.
And me.
And me.
And me.
And us.
Ready? Are you ready for another week? I hope so, because it is it's hard out here right now, especially if you are, I don't know, an intelligent, liberal-minded person. It is rough out in these streets right now. But I hope that everybody is having a good week. I hope that everybody got through their Monday okay. First day back at work for many of you. And for some of you, it is, you know, you guys work through the weekends, 2-3 jobs. I know how it is out there. So we got a whole lot to talk about. And there's a whole lot that didn't make the news that really concern me. See, everybody is so on top of this Mueller statement and the Mueller response. I know Kamala Harris got a protester that came up on the stage and all kinds of craziness. So I always try and check what's not in the news. And there's a whole lot that didn't make front page news that affects your life in a way that you may not even realize how problematic these things are. So first, the greatest theme song in radio history, and then we're going to get right into it.
So let me get this straight. I've been on air for an entire year now, speaking every and anything that comes to my twisted mind. And you haven't taken me off air yet. What is wrong with you people? Yo, welcome to the chamber. Recline, give me your free time. Let's analyze this nation with a refined mind. Let's keep trying to end the wars and throw the peace sign. Unify the pastor, rabbi, and imams and seek the divine. I do this for the Trayvons, the Michael Browns, the Eric G's, Ivories, the Ebonies. I seek the truth, they telling me lies. But you are tuned into the light, so let me open your eyes. Every weeknight on the mic, trying to speak right and exact information. Slash through the miseducation. You are tuned into the right station.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Let's start with this. Did you know that up until recently, it was illegal for a police officer to arrest you in retaliation for you protesting against them? It was illegal. Like, I mean, they've always found ways around that, but it was illegal for them to get mad at you for anything. For anything, like exercising your First Amendment right, exercising your Fifth Amendment right, exercising your right to unlawful search, or to not be subject to unlawful search and seizure, anything like that. We had a case down here in Pasco County that I was made aware of. People contact me quite a bit for help and assistance, where a young woman was house sitting for someone. And when she was house sitting for someone, or for this person, the police came to her door and they wanted to search the house. And she said, no, this isn't my house. You can't come in. Exercising her Fourth Amendment right. She had a puppy in her arm. So when she stepped out on the porch to speak to the police, they arrested her for violation of leash law. It was a retaliatory arrest. In other words, the police cannot arrest you, or that's at least what was the law. The police cannot arrest you in retaliation for doing something lawful. They can't do that. They are subject to litigation. Well, that counts also for protesting. So let's say, ladies and gentlemen, that you went out and you're out there and you're protesting, and then the police find some stupid reason to arrest you, not because they really want to arrest you for that stupid reason. Like, I don't know, you spit on the ground and they call it littering or something like that. Not because they really want to arrest you for that stupid reason, because it's retaliation. Well, they have just made it more easy to arrest you in retaliation for something you don't like, especially, and it was outlined specifically in a Supreme Court ruling, especially dealing with protesters. This is why we say elections have consequences, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't remember, Donald Trump has now appointed 2 Supreme Court justices, making the Supreme Court lean right And not just right, because I get tired of saying right and left, because it's not just right wing, it's not just conservative mindsets anymore. This is Trumpian mindsets. This is the racist, the aggressives, the anti-gay, all of these bigoted people. They try and claim that they're under some conservative veil, but the truth of the matter is they're not even conservative anymore. They are just plain out bigots, and they want to shut down any type of protest, any type of civil disobedience, anybody who doesn't go along with their status quo. They want to shut them down. They only want you to enjoy rights if you are falling into line with their ideas. You don't have the right to be gay. You don't have the right to be black and want equal treatment. You don't have the right to be a woman and want equal treatment. You don't have these rights. But other than that, of course, you have all of your civil rights. You can't protest against the flag. You can't do all of these different things. And that now they are going to allow police to retaliate and arrest you for that. See, this is, like I said, elections have consequences. Donald Trump is in office. He appoints Supreme Court justices. Now, if these justices have this mindset, they're going to start ruling that way. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, they have now made it easier to arrest protesters, especially people who are protesting against police. Let me give you the breakdown. I know this didn't make headline news. And it's not. It's excuse me. Excuse me. It's not going to make headline news, because a lot of this is to keep you distracted. A lot of this is to make sure that you don't know what's really going on. So they've got the big stories up, the sensationalized stories. They'll tell you, the whole thing with R. Kelly going on right now, and they're gonna focus on that. They're gonna focus on what was their name, Jussie Smollett, and they're gonna distract you with all of these things. And of course, they're gonna talk about the Mueller investigation, because we all know Donald Trump is guilty. So it doesn't really change many people's mindsets. But the things that affect your daily lives, where they're swinging your life more and more, I'm not even going to say to the right, they're swinging your life more and more to a point where you have no rights. They're not putting this on the news. So what's the case? The case is Nieves versus Bartlett. And the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land, there is nowhere else to appeal, delivered a split decision, finding that police officers need only to prove probable cause for an arrest to keep away from lawsuits. Now, I know you're saying, oh, well, of course, that's what goes on. But this is specifically dealing with protesters. So, jaywalking is not generally an offense that gets you arrested. But let's say you're out at a protest, right? And it's one of those shut down the streets protests, right? Now, the protest itself is not illegal, but now the cops can arrest you for jaywalking. Or let's say you're at a protest and the protest is getting a little heated, and you're going back and forth with the cops, which is your First Amendment right. Now, they can't arrest you for that, but let's say now you're walking away from the protest, and that officer sees you step 1 foot into the street and the light's red. Now they can arrest you. It used to be that was considered a retaliatory arrest. But now what's going to end up happening to discourage people from protesting, especially against police, is they're going to, when they see protesters, find any reason they can to arrest you. In other words, they're going to try and send a signal to you to say you better not protest, especially against police. Because nothing pisses cops off more than being at a protest where they're being protested. Ladies and gentlemen, this ruling is nothing more than a way for the Supreme Court to try to circumvent your right to freedom of speech, your right to peacefully assemble. We got to go to our first break, ladies and gentlemen. If you're tuned in on our radio stream, you can, we're getting ready to take you to a musical break, rather. And if you're tuned in on our video stream, we're going to take you to a word from our sponsors. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Stay tuned.
You see, when I started the chamber 4 years ago, the only reason I got on air is because some station manager in Philadelphia thought it would be funny to let a rapper talk about politics and world events. And somehow we went from a small station with 12,000 listeners in Philadelphia to an internationally syndicated radio show on the KYBN, WNIA, and HHNS networks with millions of listeners worldwide. The only reason that happened is because you continue to support this show. Now, once again, the Chamber is breaking new ground and helping our community in the process. We've transitioned our studio into a high school classroom where students can learn the skills of audio and video production and earn real high school credit for it at no expense to the parents. Everything you see and everything you hear is being done by one of our students. From the video clips in our monitors to the backgrounds, the lighting, the audio clips, even the microphone being turned on is done by one of our students. Heck, even some of the stories are brought to us by some of our students. Let me show you something. This is Kenny. He's growing up to be a fine audio engineer. Everything you hear on our show is being run through Kenny right now. He's 17 years old. He's from Pasco County, Florida. And this is BJ. And even though he's special, he runs every piece of video you're seeing right now. And he does an excellent job. Currently, we're able to provide this program to parents at no cost because I'm funding it out of my own pocket. But we won't be able to continue this without help and support from our viewers, friends, and fans. There are two ways that you can support the Chamber and our efforts. During our station break, the Chamber's video feed goes to commercials by our sponsors. If you run a business, you can take out one of these commercial ads for as little as $250. Not only would you be supporting our efforts, but you would get excellent advertising and marketing for your company. If you don't own a company, but you'd like to make a donation to our efforts, it's as simple as using your Cash App. Simply Cash App your donation in any amount to $Andre Roxx, all one word, and make sure that you put in the memo line, donation to the Chamber Radio Show. Your donations will go towards equipment, instructions, and equipment maintenance to help these high school students learn a valuable skill that they can use to make a career in the future. Finally, I want to say thank you for supporting the Chamber over the last 4 years, and I look forward to many more with you. And again, thank you for helping us turn the Chamber into more than a radio show, but a place for our youth to learn valuable skills that they can use to turn into a career in their future. Until next time, y'all, peace and blessings. I am out.
Do you know what smoking and cigarettes do to the inside of your body?
It hurts your body. Smoke and cigarettes can hurt your lungs. It hurts your throat. It hurts lots of other parts too.
It makes you more likely to get heart disease and lung disease.
It increases your risk for a heart attack or stroke.
And on the outside, it really just stinks.
Your clothes smell, your breath is gross, and your teeth get yellow. Hello, do you hear what we're saying? Do you hear what we're saying?
Do you hear what we're saying?
Smoking isn't cool. It's not cool at all.
And it can kill you. Hey, you won't start smoking for yourself. Just do it for me.
And me.
And me.
Hi, the person you're calling is using a screening service from Google and will get a copy of this conversation. Go ahead and say your name and why you're calling.
So, we have our nice guac smasher here.
That's the guac smasher?
The guac smasher. I always joked this, man, working at Chipotle definitely gave me some muscles. I mean, I worked at a sandwich shop before and the guacamole came in a bag, in a freezer, and who knows what was in it.
You know what's in all of this food.
Yes. I'm gonna add onions and cilantro, jalapenos, get all those ingredients in there.
It is fresh.
Fresh every day.
You've had quite the career.
Yeah, I've had some pretty prestigious jobs over the years. News producer, executive transport manager, and a beverage distribution supervisor. Now I'm a director at a security software firm.
Wow, you've been at it a long time.
The thing is, I like working. What if my retirement plan is I don't want to retire?
Then let's not create a retirement plan. Let's create a plan for what's next.
I like that.
Get a plan that's right for you. TD Ameritrade.
Corner pocket.
Greetings and salutations.
Whoa! It's the new guy!
You, sir, are correct. I am Epic Crunch Nacho, known worldwide for my powerful crunch. Crunch!
What the what? He just crunched the 8-ball!
Welcome to the team, Epic Crunch.
Thank you very much.
Ow! You crunched my hand!
Oh no! I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. It was a total accident. I'm sorry, it'll never happen again.
Psych!
Haha, you got me. New Goldfish Epic Crunch! Crunch that packs a punch!
Flavors of orange and vanilla and Coke living together harmoniously, just like the fine people of this town.
Orange! Vanilla. Orange. Vanilla.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Andre Roxx, host of The Chamber on KYBN, WNIA, and HHNS Radio. Now, when you see The Chamber's live video broadcast, this is what you see. But this is what you don't see. You see, when I started The Chamber 4 years ago, the only reason I got on air is because some station manager in Philadelphia thought it would be funny to let a rapper talk about politics and world events. And somehow we went from a small station with 12,000 listeners in Philadelphia to an internationally syndicated radio show on the KYBN, WNIA, and HHNS networks with millions of listeners worldwide. The only reason that happened is because you continue to support this show. Now, once again, the Chamber is breaking new ground and helping our community in the process. We've transitioned our studio into a high school classroom where students can learn the skills of audio and video production and earn real high school credit for it at no expense to the parents. Everything you see and everything you hear is being done by one of our students. From the video clips in our monitors, to the backgrounds, the lighting, the audio clips, even the microphone being turned on is done by one of our students. Heck, even some of the stories are brought to us by some of our students. Let me show you something. This is Kenny.
He's growing up to be a fine audio engineer. Everything you hear on our show is being run through Kenny right now. He's 17 years old. He's from Pasco County, Florida. And this is BJ. And even though he's special, he runs every piece of video you're seeing right now. All right, my understanding was that the sound system was not working. I'm hoping that everything is working okay now. I'm hoping that everybody can hear me okay. Listen, we do have some technical issues here on the chamber, so I do apologize about that. Let me get back to it, ladies and gentlemen. And I guess the whole last segment of the show you guys didn't hear. So I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you think about these police officers now being given permission by the Supreme Court of the United States of America to arrest you in retaliation. Again, I guess you guys didn't hear it. So let me read the Supreme Court opinion. Okay, for those of you that don't know, when you have a split decision from the Supreme Court, when you don't have a unanimous decision, then they write two opinions. They write a majority opinion, and then they write a dissenting opinion. I want to read you guys what happens here in the majority opinion, and then I want to go back and read you guys what was stated in the dissenting opinion. And I'm just going to take some excerpts here. It says, now, first of all, let me explain to you what happened. The ruling was centered on a case where an Alaska man sued a police officer for what he claimed was a retaliatory arrest. And the majority opinion stated that it ruled in the way that it did on concerns that police at certain events, like a, quote, unruly protest, could be exposed to overwhelming litigation risks. Wait a minute. What this is essentially saying is that police officers should not be held accountable. Yes, there is a higher standard for the operation. You're walking. Let's be clear here. You're walking around with a badge and a gun, and you have the discretion to possibly end someone's life. Yes, you should be held to a higher standard because the rules. I'm sorry. I'm getting hyped, ladies and gentlemen. You should be held to a higher standard because you have a higher responsibility. You are charged with the protection and safety, and you get to make a lot of judgment calls that many normal citizens would not. With that comes a greater responsibility. So, of course, you're exposed to a higher litigation risk if you do not take that responsibility seriously. It's a part of your job. If you don't like that job, McDonald's is always hiring. You chose that job. Except, what is it nowadays where people want the glory and the honor of being a member of a certain group or being a part of a job, but they don't want to accept the risks and responsibilities that come with it. Yes, I want to be a police officer, but I don't want to be held accountable for my actions if I do something wrong. How the hell does that work? And now the Supreme Court is ruling that a police officer shouldn't be held accountable for their actions. Shouldn't be held accountable for retaliating against someone. That if I don't like somebody as a police officer, I can run around and arrest them for any reason I choose. I can, hey, a piece of lint fell off of your clothes, you're littering. Now, technically speaking, that would show enough probable cause to make an arrest for littering. Now, of course, you'd probably be acquitted, but then you're not allowed, according to this Supreme Court ruling, to turn around and sue that cop. Now, let me tell you how this affects. Well, I'll tell you how it affects me, first of all. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that don't know, me and the law enforcement around this area, we ain't exactly on good terms. They don't like your man Andre Roxx very much. So now, these cops don't like me. They could find any reason in the world to arrest me. I'm riding on my motorcycle and I forget to signal. Now all of a sudden I'm sitting in a cell for a day. But let me tell you how it affects you. I know, I'm not trying to center this all around me. Let me tell you how this affects you. You speak up against your mayor one day. Well, guess who controls the police force? They put a BOLO out on you. Be on the lookout. Then all of a sudden, every time you breathe in the wrong direction, you're in handcuffs. God forbid you actually participate in a protest. You go to a Black Lives Matter rally or something like this. God forbid you do something like that. As you're leaving, they're going to find any reason to arrest you. And please understand, there is a reason to arrest you at all times. There's a book you guys need to read. It's called 3 Felonies a Day. It shows that we have so many laws on our books right now that the average American commits 3 felonies a day and doesn't even know it. This is giving police officers a free hand. We're going back to the wild, wild west days where a cop just locks you up because he doesn't like you. And there's nothing you can do about it, ladies and gentlemen. This is a devastating blow to your First Amendment rights. Now let me tell you how this is going to affect the people I affiliate with. What this is saying is, you better not protest. Because if you do, we're going to find a reason to retaliate. And now the Supreme Court has made it legal. So you can't even come back and claim that retaliation later. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you guys know I'm really not that big on these peaceful protests. I'm really not. And I'll tell you why. It makes absolutely no sense to stand outside in the hot sun all day singing "We Shall Overcome," while the police look down from their air-conditioned squad room. They might come out and give a good little speech and then go back to killing people the next day. All that is to me is a waste of energy. But you guys get mad at me when I say start shooting back at the cops. You guys get mad at me when I say start protecting yourselves and protecting your families, right? Okay. Because you say, well, the right way to do it is we protest and we go out and we march. And like I keep telling you, they tell you the right way to do it is to do it this way. And then they take it away from you. They take every way that you try to peacefully address the situation and get some results, they will take it away from you. That is what they're doing right now. They are going to take this law and they're going to run with it to the point where it's essentially going to be illegal to protest. They figured out a way to sidestep the First Amendment. so that it is now essentially legal for cops to shut protests down by finding any other reason. You're out there screaming loudly at your protest, and a piece of spit flies off your lips and hits a cop. Oh, that's assault on a police officer. You bump somebody in a crowd. Oh, that's assault. And even though the charges won't stick, they've rounded you up and got you off the streets. And now you don't have any way to litigate and fight that back. So they know they can get off scot-free. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, under the Republicans, under the Trump administration, under this, I can't even call it conservative anymore, this alt-right mentality. They are trying to take your rights away. Trump said he wants to make it illegal to kneel during the playing of the national anthem or to burn a flag. Ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative that you watch what they're doing. And you see the distraction. Why didn't Nieves versus Bartlett make front page news? With as many people out here protesting for different causes right now, why didn't that make front page news? Why didn't John Roberts' opinion, majority opinion, get published coast to coast? Because at this point, it's already gone up to the Supreme Court. There's nothing we can do about it. The ability to bring a retaliatory arrest claim is critical for the public to be able to hold police officers accountable. What this new administration is doing, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court is a part of the Trump administration at this point. What this new administration is doing is saying you can't hold cops accountable. Don't forget, Donald Trump stood up there with the police and told them to rough up suspects. Remember that? Who was Donald Trump's first pardon? Joe Arpaio. A man who was told by a federal judge, you're discriminating against people as a police officer. Stop it. Joe Arpaio said, I'm not going to stop it, and was held in contempt. Come on, man. The message is clear. Nobody better hold our cops accountable. You guys ask me why I'm in favor of impeachment. It's not because of Russia or Robert Mueller's investigation or collusion or obstruction of justice. That is the means by which it needs to happen. That is if that's the way that we can do it, cool. But this is why. Because my rights are being stripped, and you should be just as emphatic about this as I am. I come from a race of people who have only enjoyed legal full rights as citizens for 55 years. I'll be damned if I'm going to let you strip those away from me. Both my parents were alive when we were not considered legal full citizens. My grandmother and grandfather both had grades to get into Ivy League schools, but didn't have the complexion. I'll be damned if I sit here and watch you strip the rights away from me. As an American citizen, I am the first generation in my family to be born and to have rights legally protected under the law. I've never enjoyed all of those rights because in practice it doesn't happen. But I'm the first generation in my family to be born with those rights, at least on paper. And I'm watching the Supreme Court try to sidestep them. Yeah, you have a First Amendment right, but you really don't have a First Amendment right, because we'll find another reason to arrest you. And now we're not going to let you come back and claim that that was a retaliatory arrest. They are pretty much trying to provide complete immunity to police. We all know the old adage, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, we already have corrupt police across this country. Why the hell would you give them more power? Please believe this ruling is also going to be used to kill more people. Because what you're going to have is you're going to have somebody at a protest, and a cop is going to try to arrest them on some ridiculous trumped up charge. And all it's going to take is for them to say, no, we've already seen it. When somebody who a police officer is arresting says no, that can turn into a deadly situation quickly. God forbid somebody exercise their rights under Plummer v. State. Look it up. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But if you're a protester, you're a target now. And if you think, especially if you're one of the protest leaders, if you think they're not going to follow you to try to find something, you're insane. In 2017, St. Louis police arrested 307 people at a Black Lives Matter rally. These included lawyers, religious clergy, members of the community, people who lived on that block for trespassing. They literally arrested people. They were just rounding people up and arresting people. Even people who were just like, hey, there's a protest in front of my front door. But they didn't care. If these guys were standing on their porch, arrested. And they arrested them for trespassing. And they were protesting against a white police officer who was acquitted for killing a black man, Michael Brown. And last year in Georgia, police used a little-known KKK law to arrest counter-protesters to a neo-Nazi rally, but not the actual white supremacists. The power to arrest is a dominant power. It's potent. And they are going to use that as a means by which to suppress your free speech. So I got a question. I turned on MSNBC today, Fox News, CNN, ABC, all of the news outlets. You know what I heard? Some guy ran up on stage with Kamala Harris and security quickly pulled him off stage. Now, though I do not believe it is proper etiquette to run up on stage and snatch a microphone from a presidential candidate, if I had to weigh the importance of these two stories, sorry, Kamala. Sorry. But I'm going to bring the news to people that is really going to affect their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the Supreme Court, in effect, you are not allowed to protest anymore. If the cops don't want you to protest, you're not allowed to protest. How many arrests do you think that we're going to see in the very near future for cops saying, we want you to disperse this crowd, and then turning around and arresting people for failure to obey a lawful command? Watch how this plays out. Just watch. Now, I know we had some unscheduled breaks. We had some technical issues. But we are going to go to our top of the hour musical break here. I'm going to start you guys off with a little bit of Earth, Wind, and Fire if you're tuned in on our radio stream. If you're tuned in on our video stream, we're going to go to a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
And he does an excellent job. Currently, we're able to provide this program to parents at no cost because I'm funding it out of my own pocket. But we won't be able to continue this without help and support from our viewers, friends, and fans. There are two ways that you can support the Chamber and our efforts. During our station break, the Chamber's video feed goes to commercials by our sponsors. If you run a business, you can take out one of these commercial ads for as little as $250. Not only would you be supporting our efforts, but you would get excellent advertising and marketing for your company. If you don't own a company, but you'd like to make a donation to our efforts, it's as simple as using your Cash App. Simply Cash App your donation in any amount to $ Andre Roxx, all one word, and make sure that you put in the memo line, donation to the Chamber Radio Show. Your donations will go towards equipment, instructions, and equipment maintenance to help these high school students learn a valuable skill that they can use to make a career in the future. And equipment maintenance to help these high schools. Thank you for supporting the Chamber over the last 4 years, and I look forward to many more with you. And again, thank you for helping us turn the Chamber into more than a radio show, but a place for our youth to learn valuable skills that they can use to turn into a career in their future. Until next time, y'all, peace and blessings. I am out.
Do you know what smoking and cigarettes do to the inside of your body?
It hurts your body. Smoke and cigarettes can hurt your lungs. It hurts your throat. It hurts lots of other parts too.
It makes you more likely to get heart disease and lung disease.
It increases your risk for a heart attack or stroke.
And on the outside, it just stinks.
Your clothes smell, your breath is gross, and your teeth get yellow. Hello? Do you hear what we're saying? Do you hear what we're saying? Do you know what smoking and cigarettes do to the inside of your body?
Smoking isn't cool.
It hurts your body. Smoke and cigarettes can hurt your lungs. It hurts your throat. It hurts lots of other parts. And me.
And me. And me. And us. Cigarettes do to the inside of your body.
Isn't cool.
It hurts your body. Smoke and cigarettes can hurt your lungs. It hurts your throat. It hurts.
I always joked as, man, working at Chipotle definitely gave me some muscles. I mean, I worked at a sandwich shop before and the guacamole came in a bag, in a freezer, and who knows what was in it.
You know what's in all of this food.
Yes. I'm gonna add onions and cilantro, jalapenos, get all those ingredients in there.
It is fresh.
Fresh every day.
You've had quite the career.
Yeah, I've had some pretty prestigious jobs over the years. News producer, executive transport manager, and a beverage distribution supervisor. Now I'm a director at a security software firm.
Wow, you've been at it a long time.
The thing is, I like working. What if my retirement plan is I don't want to retire?
Then let's not create a retirement plan. Let's create a plan for what's next.
I like that.
Get a plan that's right for you. TD Ameritrade.
Corner pocket.
Greetings and salutations.
Whoa! It's the new guy!
You, sir, are correct. I am Epic Crunch Nacho, known worldwide for my powerful crunch. Crunch!
What the what? He just crunched the 8-ball!
Welcome to the team, Epic Crunch.
Thank you very much.
Ow! You crunched my hand!
Oh no! I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. It was a total accident. I'm sorry, it'll never happen again.
Psych!
Haha, you got me. New Goldfish Epic Crunch. Crunch that packs a punch.
Flavors of orange and vanilla and Coke living together harmoniously, just like the fine people of this town.
Orange! Vanilla. Orange. Vanilla.
Orange, vanilla, Coke.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Andre Roxx, host of The Chamber on KYBN, WNIA, and HHNS Radio. Now, when you see The Chamber's live video broadcast, this is what you see. But this is what you don't see. You see, when I started The Chamber 4 years ago, the only reason I got on air is because some station manager in Philadelphia thought it would be funny to let a rapper talk about politics and world events. And somehow we went from a small station with 12,000 listeners in Philadelphia to an internationally syndicated radio show on the KYBN, WNIA, and HHNS networks with millions of listeners worldwide. The only reason that happened is because you continue to support this show. Now, once again, the Chamber is breaking new ground and helping our community in the process. We've transitioned our studio into a high school classroom where students can learn the skills of audio and video production and earn real high school credit for it at no expense to the parents. Everything you see and everything you hear is being done by one of our students. From the video clips in our monitors, to the backgrounds, the lighting, the audio clips, even the microphone being turned on is done by one of our students. Heck, even some of the stories are brought to us by some of our students. Let me show you something. This is Kenny. He's growing up to be a fine audio engineer. Everything you hear on our show is being run through Kenny right now. He's 17 years old. He's from Pasco County, Florida. And this is BJ. And even though he's special, he runs every piece of video you're seeing right now. And he does an excellent job. Currently, we're able to provide this program to parents at no cost because I'm funding it out of my own pocket. But we won't be able to continue this without help and support from our viewers, friends, and fans. There are two ways that you can support the Chamber and our efforts. During our station break, the Chamber's video feed goes to commercials by our sponsors. If you run a business, you can take out one of these commercial ads for as little as $250. Not only would you be supporting our efforts, but you would get excellent advertising and marketing for your company. If you don't own a company, but you'd like to make a donation to our efforts, it's as simple as using your Cash App. Simply Cash App your donation in any amount to $ Andre Roxx, all one word, and make sure that you put in the memo line, donation to the Chamber Radio Show. Your donations will go towards equipment, instructions, and equipment maintenance to help these high school students learn a valuable skill that they can use to make a career in the future. Finally, I want to say thank you for supporting the Chamber over the last 4 years, and I look forward to many more with you. And again, thank you for helping us turn the Chamber into more than a radio show, but a place for our youth to learn valuable skills that they can use to turn into a career in their future. Until next time, y'all, peace and blessings. I am out.
You know it's
Yes, y'all, that is James Brown, the big payback. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio. That's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Apparently, we are still having some problems with our phone lines. So, if you would like to call into the show, see, I've never been nervous about this because it doesn't bother me one bit if my friends and fans call me up directly. I've always been this way, even, you know, throughout my my musical career and all of that. So if you'd like to call into the show, I've already gotten my cell phone plugged into the sound system here. So call in. The number is going to be a little different than what you see on your screen. Call 727-457-5091. That's 727-457-5091. You can call me direct. I have no problem with it because, you know, if you guys start calling me and I don't, I don't want to hear from you, I'll just turn the phone off. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to keep talking about this basically the police being given carte blanche to do as they please to whoever they please without any type of retaliation, because there are a few other stories that I want to get to today. And this story is probably going to piss off a lot of my normal fans. But I want you to do me a favor. Before you get angry with me, which some of you still are, I want you to hear me out. I want you to hear me out all the way, because believe it or not, I'm still on your side. I have just thought the issue through. And that is, I've wanted to do this story for a couple days now. I know it was May 24th when Mr. Julian Castro, candidate for president of the United States, went on this march with a bunch of McDonald's workers about getting the minimum wage in the United States of America raised to $15 an hour. You ready for the part that's going to make you all mad? Raising the minimum wage in itself is not a good idea. Wait. I know I'm ducking, I'm dodging. I don't want to get hit. Listen to what I'm saying here. Minimum wage workers are among the poorest workers in America. Period. They always have been. These are people who are scraping to get by, even when minimum wage was keeping pace with inflation and all of that. Here's the problem with just raising the minimum wage. Now, I want McDonald's workers and people who work for minimum wage, please hear me out before you turn off my show. I know you're going to turn it. I know you guys are like clicking right now. If I could see the ratings in real time, I'm sure I'd just see just a plummet. But hear me out for the 8 people that are still listening. you have to recognize what is called economies of scale. So if I have $1, right, and a loaf of bread costs $1, I have the buying power of one loaf of bread. If I have $2 and a loaf of bread costs $2, I haven't really made any more money, because money in itself is not valuable. All these are little pieces of cotton. This is just a little piece of cotton. I know people say paper, but it's actually made of cotton. It's just a little piece of cotton that people have assigned a value to. There is no real physical or chemical difference between a $1 bill and a $20 bill. There's none. There's no real physical difference between the two, except for we assign value to it. And what we've said is that this piece of paper allows you to exchange a certain amount of these pieces of paper or cotton for a certain amount of goods or services. So regardless of whether or not I have 100 pieces of paper or one piece of paper, if they say what you have in your wallet is worth one loaf of bread, it doesn't matter. So if $1 is worth a loaf of bread, and then all of a sudden you give me $2, I might feel better about myself, but then if you raise the price of a loaf of bread, I have the same buying power. And that's with any good or service across the globe. Now, what happens if you raise the minimum wage? Okay? You raise the minimum wage. Almost every company in the world, major company, has minimum wage workers. Okay? These are, the lower level employees, the janitors, McDonald's, it would be the workers that you see every day. Walmart would be the greeters and the checkout people and all of that. They're minimum wage workers, right? Now, if you raise the minimum wage, do you believe that these companies are going to cut into their profits in order to pay their employees? Of course not. They're not going to cut into their profits at all. What are they going to do? They're going to raise their prices. They are going to pass their pricing, or they're going to pass their costs along to the consumer, right? And then you have what's called inflation. For those of you that aren't familiar with inflation, it's when prices go up. So you got Walmart, and that right now they're selling that loaf of bread for $1, right? But now they got to pay their employees more. Now they've got to pay their employees more. So they say, okay, a loaf of bread is $1. Well, we got to raise it to $2 because we've got to double our employee salary. So then you got the guy who works at Walmart who on paper got a pay raise. And on top of that, now because they got a pay raise, they're in a higher tax bracket, so they're paying more taxes. On paper, they got a pay raise, but in essence, they can still buy the same amount of stuff. And trust me, if the prices of food go up, then the prices of rent is going to go up, because the landlord still has to pay for their own food. So they're going to say, hey, I need to make more money. I've got to raise rent. All prices across the board are going to end up going up. And then what you have is you have those same people who are living in poverty, still living in poverty, and prices have just gone up. That's all that's going to happen. That's all that's going to happen. Now, with that being said, now that I've successfully pissed off like 90% of my fan base, with that being said, yes, I agree that it is atrocious to have somebody work 40 hours a week, work a full-time job, and not be able to sustain or support themselves and their family. That is atrocious. So everybody that's out here right now screaming to raise minimum wage, they haven't put anything on the other side of the equal sign. How do you raise minimum wage and keep prices the same? Because yes, I believe that anybody who's working a 40-hour work week should not need government assistance. They should be able to live reasonably comfortably on a 40-hour a week job. Period. So there has to be something on the other side of the equal sign. The way that you do this is you simultaneously raise the minimum wage. And I don't believe that $15 an hour is enough. Because I'll tell you something. Back in the 90s, minimum wage was $5 an hour. And you could buy a loaf of bread for about 50 cents. I remember this. This was when I started working. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, my first 9-to-5 job was McDonald's on Haynes Street in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. It lasted about 2 months because I don't have the attitude to work for other people. But anyway, if you look, what you need to do is not only stop or raise people's rates. You know what? Let me back up real quick. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sometimes my mind gets ahead of my words. So let me back up. If from the 90s to now, minimum wage had kept up with the rate of inflation, it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 an hour. So I believe that we need to raise it to correct the fact that it did not keep up with inflation from 1990 to 2019. That being said, what you have to do is not only raise the minimum wage, it's not a one-time fix. What you have to do is raise the minimum wage and then also increase or add incremental increases into the law to keep up with the rate of inflation. So that if we set it straight, so that a worker right now makes $20 an hour, let's say. That's minimum wage. $20 an hour or whatever we raise it up to. That an employee makes $20 an hour or $15 or whatever the case may be. There has to be an incremental period where Congress or some governing body or something like that evaluates the rate of inflation based on commodities and real estate prices. And it needs to be very short periods. I'd say no more. I would say every 3 months, but I would say no more than a year, where the minimum wage automatically adjusts to the rate of inflation. In other words, hey, Walmart decided to raise their prices on bread, or bread prices have gone up nationwide. Fine, we're going to compensate for that automatically by raising the minimum wage prices. That way, eventually, these companies have no choice but to dig into their profit margins to pay their employees a fair wage. The reason that a lot of these companies have gotten away with, or have turned into these mega corporations. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, in the 90s, and I use Walmart as an example, but I'll also talk about some other companies here. In the 90s, Walmart wasn't that big. I know, like, it's hard to fathom. I know, like, all of my millennial listeners can't remember a time when Walmart wasn't that big. But Walmart wasn't that big back in the 90s. Kmart was the place where everybody went. And one of the main reasons that Walmart was able to grow the way that it grew was by cutting their employee costs to nearly nothing. And I mean, they were even training their managers to rip their employees off, to take hours off of their paychecks and things like that. The reason that they were able to do so is because Walmart could cut their costs. Remember back in the 90s, for those of you that are big, you could go into Walmart and buy stuff for like next to free. And that's how they were able to grow, because they cut their costs so low. Their employees were getting paid nearly nothing. And they were able to basically dominate and take over. They've pretty much put Kmart out of business. I mean, Kmart is still hanging on by a thread, but they're not the dominant force they used to be. And that's why they were able to grow. Another company that a lot of people don't think of, a group of companies actually, are the airlines. Do you realize that at one point in time, like 30% of pilots, these are the people who are flying your plane, were also on government assistance? I want you to think about that for a minute. You have gone through specialized training. Your entire, I'm talking about years of training. And now you're operating a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment with the lives of hundreds of people, and your stomach's growling? I don't want a guy like that flying my plane. Even what's his name? Sully, the guy who landed the plane in the Hudson. He brought that up in front of Congress. These airlines were able to monopolize the industry by not paying their employees, and I'm talking about high-level employees, a fair wage. So you have to force these companies to play fair. But you're not going to force them to play fair simply by saying, hey, look, we're going to raise the minimum wage. All they're going to do is pass that along to the consumer. And those people that you see protesting, they're still going to be screwed. They're going to have the same buying power that they have now. They're still going to need government assistance. I know I went all around the hen's barn to get to that. And that's mainly because I just like pissing people off. But the truth of the matter is, yes, we need to raise the minimum wage. But we also need to make sure, like the whole goal here is to make sure that the minimum wage is a livable wage. So we raise the minimum wage, and it'll be nice for a few months until inflation catches up. And 6 months down the road, those workers are going to be in the same position they're in now. And then what's going to happen is the Republicans are going to turn around and they're going to say, what do you mean? We just raised minimum wage. And it's going to be a harder fight. So you got to deal with the economies of scale. You raise minimum wage and you raise food prices, you're still screwed. You raise minimum wage, but then you raise rent, you're still screwed. You have to look at both sides of the equal sign. I'm way over my time here for our break. So let me take you guys to some music here. What do I want to do here? What do I want to do? We haven't done any hip hop today. Let's see. Let's do a little bit of Tupac. All eyes on me. We'll be right back here on the chamber, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, by the way, if you're tuned in on our video stream, sorry, you're not going to hear Tupac. You're going to hear a word from our sponsors. We'll be back. Stay tuned.
Smoking and cigarettes do to the inside of your body.
It hurts your body. Smoke and cigarettes can hurt your lungs. It hurts your throat. It hurts lots of other parts too.
It makes you more likely to get heart disease and lung disease. It increases your risk for a heart attack or stroke.
And on the outside, it really just stinks.
Your clothes smell, your breath is gross, and your teeth get yellow. Hello? Do you hear what we're saying?
Do you hear what we're saying?
Do you hear what we're saying?
Smoking isn't cool. It's not cool at all.
And it can kill you. Hey, you won't start smoking for yourself. Just do it for me.
And me.
And me.
And me.
And me.
And us.
So we have our nice guac smasher here.
That's the guac smasher?
The guac smasher. I always joked is, man, working at Chipotle definitely gave me some muscles. I mean, I worked at a sandwich shop before and the guacamole came in a bag in a freezer and who knows what was in it.
You know what's in all of this food.
Yes. I'm gonna add onions and cilantro, jalapenos, get all those ingredients in there.
It is fresh.
Fresh every day.
You've had quite the career.
Yeah, I've had some pretty prestigious jobs over the years. News producer, executive transport manager, and a beverage distribution supervisor. Now I'm a director at a security software firm.
Wow, you've been at it a long time.
The thing is, I like working. What if my retirement plan is I don't want to retire?
Then let's not create a retirement plan. Let's create a plan for what's next.
I like that.
Get a plan that's right for you. TD Ameritrade.
Corner pocket. Greetings and salutations.
Whoa! It's the new guy!
You, sir, are correct. I am Epic Crunch Nacho, known worldwide for my powerful crunch. Crunch!
What the what? He just crunched the 8-ball!
Welcome to the team, Epic Crunch.
Thank you very much.
Ow! You crunched my hand!
Oh no! I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. It was a total accident. I'm sorry, it'll never happen again.
Psych!
Haha, you got me. New Goldfish Epic Crunch. Crunch that packs a punch.
Flavors of orange and vanilla and Coke living together harmoniously, just like the fine people of this town.
Orange! Vanilla. Orange. Vanilla.
Orange, vanilla, Coke.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Andre Roxx, host of The Chamber on KYBN, WNIA, and HHNS Radio. Now, when you see the Chamber's live video broadcast, this is what you see. But this is what you don't see. You see, when I started the Chamber 4 years ago, the only reason I got on air is because some station manager in Philadelphia thought it would be funny to let a rapper talk about politics and world events. And somehow we went from a small station with 12,000 listeners in Philadelphia to an internationally syndicated radio show on the KYBN, WNIA, and HHNS networks with millions of listeners. Yes, y'all, that is Tupac. All eyes on me. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to say one more thing about minimum wage. By the way,
Phone lines are open, but you're going to have to call into my cell, 727-457-5091. I'm only going to give that number out one more time, 727-457-5091. Listen, if we raise the minimum wage, here's one thing. Well, let me back this up. I'm all in favor of raising the minimum wage. But we have to raise the minimum wage and also write into the law at the same time. Because, listen, if we try and revisit this twice, we're going to meet too much resistance. So you got to write into the law at the same time that minimum wage will automatically, incrementally go up based on inflation. And those increments need to be small. 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be. Otherwise, these companies are going to pass the buck along to the consumer, and we just talked about it. You guys heard that, and if you didn't, listen, all of these videos are rewindable, and if you tuned in late on the radio broadcast, well, you should have tuned in earlier. Here's the problem, too. If you just raise the minimum wage just right across the board, you're going to end up putting a lot of small companies out of business. Let me explain why. A small company, let's look at the small baker up the street versus what's Wonder Bread, okay? So Wonder Bread, they make hundreds of millions of loaves of bread every day. Or I don't know if they make that much. They make a lot of bread, okay? So they can buy flour at a dramatically reduced rate. I don't know how much flour costs. I don't buy flour except for home flour. I don't know what industrial prices for flour are. So let's just say, and somebody is going to call in and correct me, shut up, I don't know. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, gallon of flour, I don't even know what the units of measurement, a pound, yeah, there we go. A pound of flour is $1, okay? Now, if you raise the minimum wage, the flour manufacturing company, if you raise it and you don't put incremental increases on the minimum wage based on the rate of inflation. If you raise the minimum wage, right? The flour making company has minimum wage workers. Now, if somebody is buying in bulk, like Wonder Bread, they're getting a bulk discount rate. So they're going, even if the prices, the flour company is going to have to raise the prices because they got to pay their minimum wage workers. But they're still going to give Wonder Bread that bulk discount rate for buying 1 million pounds of flour a week. That discount rate is not going to be given to the small baker. So what ends up happening? The baker right now, he's competing with Wonder Bread for a loaf of bread, right? So right now, that small baker, the corner store bakery, who's got 2 employees that are making minimum wage, he's got to raise his prices, plus the price of his flour has gone up. Now he's priced himself out of the market because a $2 loaf of bread is now a $6 loaf of bread. So more of his customers say, you know what? I can't afford a $6 loaf of bread. So I'm going to go over to Walmart and pick up some Wonder Bread for $1.50. He starts to lose customers because he's priced himself out of the market and he goes under. The only way to make this thing work, in my opinion, and I'm open to see if somebody else has another way, but the only way I think you can make this thing work is if you say, hey, flour company, if you raise your prices on flour, that's going to cause inflation. No problem. But guess what? You're still not going to make a higher profit, because as soon as that causes inflation, you're going to end up having to pay your employees more money. This way, you ensure that the companies that are manufacturing the products, which all are the ones who have the minimum wage employees, have to eat the costs out of their own pocket, which they should have been doing anyway. They should have been paying their employees a livable wage to begin with, and we wouldn't be in this mess. But you gotta attack it from both sides. You can't just give the people a wage increase and not control prices. Now, of course, it would be not only unconstitutional, but uncapitalistic and un-American to tell companies what they can charge. But especially big companies like Walmart, like Kraft Foods and places like that, they have a huge impact. If they raise their prices, they are going to have a huge impact on the economy and cause inflation. If Walmart raises their prices by 2%, they are the #1 retailer in the country. That alone causes inflation in the United States market, probably a 1% inflation in the United States market, which will be directly reflected in their employees' pay. One thing I notice nowadays is that politicians like Julian Castro and all of that, they try to come up with simple, one-step solutions. And I understand why. Because a lot of American people nowadays don't think things through enough. And what I mean by that is they don't think about the consequences of their act. We live in the microwave generation. Give me my solution in 2 minutes or less. Here's the problem. Economics is a complex concept. Our economic system is complex. And there is no 2-minute answer. So what Julian Castro is doing, and I understand why, he's courting the American voter. At the end of the day, if people don't vote for him, he can't do anything. If people don't vote for him, he doesn't get elected. So if the people aren't going to think through a complex answer, he's got to give them a simple answer. The problem is that simple answer is not going to be effective, but it's what the people want to hear. So the true problem in all of this really lies with the American people. This is why, I've considered it in the past, and I don't think I would really do well running for office, because I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth. And the truth is, this is a complex situation. But if you just raise minimum wage, all that's going to happen is prices are going to get raised. Prices getting raised, minimum wage getting raised, means that we have effectively done nothing. If I double your salary, but I also double the price of everything, you still can buy the same amount of stuff. If the goal, which I think the goal is, according to what I've been hearing from everybody who is supporting this raise the minimum wage, the goal is to force these companies to pay their workers a reasonable pay. Well, you're not going to do that simply by raising the pay. All they're going to do is raise their prices, and then everybody else is going to raise their prices. And guess what? The workers are still essentially getting paid the same thing. And your dollar becomes more and more worthless. Eventually, the dollar will end up being the peso. It's time for our next break. Let's go to a little bit of George Clinton. If you're tuned in on our radio stream, if you're tuned in on our Facebook stream or our video stream, YouTube, Facebook, I think we got a few others running right now. We're going to go to a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Worldwide. The only reason that happened is because you continue to support this show. Now, once again, the Chamber is breaking new ground and helping our community in the process. We've transitioned our studio into a high school classroom where students can learn the skills of audio and video production and earn real high school credit for it at no expense to the parents. Everything you see and everything you hear is being done by one of our students. From the video clips in our monitors, to the backgrounds, the lighting, the audio clips, even the microphone being turned on is done by one of our students. Heck, even some of the stories are brought to us by some of our students. Let me show you something. This is Kenny. He's growing up to be a fine audio engineer. Everything you hear on our show is being run through Kenny right now. He's 17 years old. He's from Pasco County, Florida. And this is BJ. And even though he's special, he runs every piece of video you're seeing right now. And he does an excellent job. Currently, we're able to provide this program to parents at no cost because I'm funding it out of my own pocket. But we won't be able to continue this without help and support from our viewers, friends, and fans. There are two ways that you can support the Chamber and our efforts. During our station break, the Chamber's video feed goes to commercials by our sponsors. If you run a business, you can take out one of these commercial ads for as little as $250. Not only would you be supporting our efforts, but you would get excellent advertising and marketing for your company. If you don't own a company, but you'd like to make a donation to our efforts, it's as simple as using your Cash App. Simply Cash App your donation in any amount to $ Andre Roxx, all one word, and make sure that you put in the memo line, donation to the Chamber Radio Show. Your donations will go towards equipment, instructions, and equipment maintenance to help these high school students learn a valuable skill that they can use to make a career in the future. Finally, I want to say thank you for supporting the Chamber over the last 4 years, and I look forward to many more with you. And again, thank you for helping us turn the Chamber into more than a radio show, but a place for our youth to learn valuable skills that they can use to turn into a career in their future. Until next time, y'all, peace and blessings. I am out.
Do you know what smoking and cigarettes do to the inside of your body?
It hurts your body. Smoke and cigarettes can hurt your lungs. It hurts your throat. It hurts lots of other parts too.
It makes you more likely to get heart disease and lung disease.
It increases your risk for a heart attack or stroke. And on the outside, it maybe just stinks.
Your clothes smell, your breath is gross, and your teeth get yellow. Hello? Do you hear what we're saying? Do you hear what we're saying?
Do you hear what we're saying?
Smoking isn't cool. It's not cool at all.
And it can kill you. And you won't stop smoking for yourself. Just do it for me. And me. And me. And me. And me. And us.
All right, y'all, that's George Clinton. Atomic Dog. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chamber. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. And of course, you are tuned in to either KYBN Radio, the World Advantage Network, Real People Talk Radio, WNIA, or Hip Hop News Source Radio, that's HHNSradio.com. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Look, again, just real quick, before we move on to our next story. Listen, I'm not against raising minimum wage. I'm against just doing it. I'm against just raising minimum wage without any checks and balances on inflation. I agree that anybody working a full-time job should be able to eat. We shouldn't have government assistance for people working a full-time job. It's insane. They shouldn't need it, but they do. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to touch on one last story here before we get out of here, and this is just going to be a quick one. And when I heard this story, it just hit me off. It just, something about it just hit me off. And I get where he's coming from, but I got a problem with it. And I want to be clear here. Some solution is better than no solution. But Jack Young, mayor of Baltimore, I think you're off your mark. Now, it might sound a little bit absurd, but Jack Young has proposed that instead of allowing people of the city of Baltimore, especially the youth of the city of Baltimore, to get involved with gangs and gun violence and things like that, he said that he would like to get them into boxing. Now, I don't have a problem with boxing. I am a huge fan of boxing. As a matter of fact, just today I was watching the Rumble in the Jungle. But let me explain to you where I have a problem. He said, if they really want to settle these scores, we can have them down at the Civic Center, now called the Royal Farms Arena, by the way. He's still living in the past a little bit. Put them in a boxing ring and let them box it out. He's talking about rival gangs and rival gangsters. And he's trying to set up a program right now to allow gangsters to box it out. Now, I get the concept. You guys know I'm a hip-hop artist. Now, what did hip-hop grow out of? For those, give you guys a little hip-hop history. Hip-hop grew out of, there were two guys, Africa Bambaataa and DJ Kool Herc, who said, hey, instead of letting these gangs fight and shoot, let's have the turf wars and all of that and all the controversy. Let's settle it by bringing these guys in for dance competitions, DJ competitions, things like that. And that's how they settled it, in the Bronx Rec Center, in the South Bronx. That's where hip-hop got its start. So I understand the concept. We're going to settle things through breakdancing instead of settling things through shooting each other and breaking each other's necks. Here's where I have a problem. Though I understand channeling the energy into something more positive, and yes, I don't have a problem with boxing, but I think it sends a message to the rest of the world that the only way to channel the youth of the inner city is through violent means, through aggressive means. Like, the only way for these guys to settle their scores is to be violent with each other. It gives the impression that our inner city youth are nothing but violent animals. And it says, hey, let's at least channel their violence in a structured way. I think that there are more, what's the word I'm looking for? Productive and intellectual avenue. Let me tell you something, guys. Turf wars in major cities happen over drugs. Okay? Now, I've said this all my life. If you are a drug dealer, you are among some of the best salesmen in the world. I want you to think about this for a minute. We all know what crack does to our bodies. We all know what heroin does to our bodies. You sell a product that kills people, which means you constantly have to convince new people to use this product. You constantly have to convince people who are aware that this product is deadly and dangerous to try a new product. On top of that, your product is not even, it's not even well marketed as far as its name. It's called crack. Who wants to put something called crack into their body? Now, against all of those odds, as a drug dealer, to stay in business, you find new customers and you remain in business. You have to be a hell of a salesman to do something like that. So instead of telling these youth to channel that energy into violence, why don't you teach them how to sell something other than crack? These people, let me tell you something. A successful crack dealer, given a different upbringing, would be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. If you are successfully selling crack or heroin or anything else on the street, you have the skill set and the tenacity and the drive to be successful. Why are we teaching them to be more violent? Why don't we say, hey, listen, why don't you hop out of that world, hop into the business world where you don't have to deal with violence? Let me teach you another way. Instead of killing your competition, why don't you sue your competition? Let me explain something to you. Turf wars in the business world are fought in the courts, in the halls of Congress, by lobbyists. I'm going to tell you something. The only difference between a heroin dealer and a pharmaceutical company, because they're basically selling the same product, opiates. Heroin is nothing but an opiate. It's a painkiller. It would be on the market as a painkiller, just like Percocet, if it didn't have such a bad reputation. The only difference is Merck and Pfizer and Bayer and Tylenol, they have lobbyists. It's the only difference. That's the only difference. So why not take these guys out and say, hey, listen, let's take you out of this situation and let me teach you how to take those same skills that you're using on the street and use those as a business. Let's find a legitimate product where you can make the same amount of money and let's sell that. We don't have to keep teaching our youth to be violent. We keep teaching our youth to be violent. All we're doing is we're going to teach them violent skills to go back on the streets and be more violent. Not to mention, we're continuing to perpetuate the idea of the super predator. Johnny sells crack. Part of being a crack dealer is being violent. You have to do that. What we're telling the world is Johnny is a violent animal and he can only be violent. So the only way to save ourselves from Johnny is not to give Johnny an opportunity to leave the violence. We're just going to give him some structured violence. I don't want to be down on Mayor Young because I understand what he's trying to do. I respect it. You know, I would love to bring Mayor Young on the program here and just have a conversation with him. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to invest that kind of money, why don't you invest the same amount of money to a program to help these kids set up a business? I'm going to tell you guys something. You guys know I do an import-export business right now. I started that business with $20. You want to invest in these kids? Give them $200 to start the same business and see what they do with it. I'll tell you guys in a heartbeat. You guys know I used to sell heroin and all kinds of other stuff. I'm not going to get into it right now because the statute of limitations hasn't passed on all of it. But I used to do a lot of things when I was younger. And I understood a lot of concepts of business. All it takes is to channel that into the right direction. The same concepts on the street apply. And when I did it, I knew a lot of other drug dealers. Let me tell you something. Most of them didn't start off. I know most guys that started off, they started off with like $50. And most guys turned it into $1,500, $2,000 a day. In a very short period of time. 3-6 months. So why don't you take that same money and invest it in these kids? Give them $200, $500 a piece. Structure it so that they can only use it for this business. And watch what they do with it. They've got the brains to do it. They've got the brains. And watch how quickly you eliminate their desire for violence. They're fighting a turf war on the streets. They get into this business and they say, wait a minute. I don't have to go out here and risk my life. Because I come after this guy, I got to shoot him over my turf. He might shoot back. But if I'm in a legitimate business and somebody is infringing upon my territory or my copyrights or something like that, I can take them to court because it's not an illegal business. See, in the crack game, you can't take somebody to court. So you got to shoot them. In any other business, you say, I'll take you to court. And if I lose in court, I don't lose my life. I just lose a couple dollars. When kids start to see that, they say, you know what? I don't need to be violent anymore. I don't need to be a thug or a gangster anymore. If I can make $1,500 a day and get shot, I mean, think about this. These guys are smart. They're not stupid. And if they say to themselves, I can make $1,500 a day getting shot at, or I can make $1,500 a day and not get shot at, what smart person do you know that's going to say, I'll make $1,500 a day and get shot at? And you start to quell that violent attitude rather than encourage it. I don't want to make these kids more violent and structure their violence. I want to point these kids in a new direction. So, to Mayor Young, again, I respect your desire. Because ultimately, I think we have the same goal. I just think there's a much better way to go about it. There's a much better optical way to go about it. There's a much better and much more productive way to go about it. And guess what, Mayor Young? You invest that kind of money into them doing businesses, they're in Baltimore. That increases your tax base. Every time somebody sets up a new business in your city, you get the taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my show. I want to thank everybody out there for inviting me into your home, into your vehicle, onto your laptop, your cell phone, your tablet computer, however you're listening to me today. I want to thank you for inviting me into your eardrums. It is always an honor and a privilege to have my voice heard, to have my opinion taken into consideration. Even if you disagree with everything I just said, I still appreciate you taking the time to hear me out. That's an honor and a privilege I don't take for granted. So thank you very much for that. As always, remember, we don't have to like each other, but God said we should love each other. I'm your host, Andre Roxx, Mr. Independent. Till next time, y'all, peace and blessings. I am out.